I was doing post on a film called Henry's Crime. I was in Technicolor, New York, and Chris Keneally, the director and writer, was the post supervisor. He had also done a documentary before, and I was an actor and I was a producer on it to a certain extent. And we were in the DI process. And we were in the moment where we were doing, and this is where Side by Side came up, we were doing the moment where they've color corrected it digitally, and then they're matching the photochemical to the digital image. And we had, behind us in the back, we had a colorist and a timer. And at the same time, Malcolm Venville, the director, was talking about how he'd been working digitally in commercials, and Paul Cameron, the cinematographer, was showing me images on a DSLR for a commercial that he had shot, and this is what he had used. And I was talking to Charlie Hertzfeld, who was, the head of motion pictures and at Technicolor New York, and he was telling me how his business was changing. And I was sitting there, and Chris and I were like talking, and I was just looking around, and I had this kind of aha moment, which was, is film, I remember just going, this is all going away. Film is going away. Because I was just feeling the impact of how much it was becoming digital. And to me, the digital camera was the last piece. And so I wanted to, I asked Chris if he wanted to go on this kind of expedition to find out what was going on. And that turned into Side by Side. And Chris, being in the post, he and I were side by side because, we started in the documentary, it was like, well, what are we losing? And Chris was like, well, what are we gaining? And where did we come from, and where are we now, and where could this be going? Mm-hmm. And so for me, it was, I was the, what are we losing? Film, the texture of film, the materiality of it, the look of it. Mm-hmm. Working with it, the artisans and craftspeople who work with it, and everything that was directed to utilizing, capitalizing on this medium. And I think it goes into just the idea of the image being digitized to how we're dealing with exhibition and distribution. Mm-hmm. And then in the documentary, we're talking earlier when we're speaking about, well, how is this affecting? It's the director, and a lot of the focus here is the cinematographer, the keeper of the image, and how that image is now being impacted so many steps of the way to where the cinematographer is kind of like catching up to the image, or in the early days fighting for the image. The colorists had their moment of like, I color your movie now. Welcome to my world. Which though on the other hand brought great opportunity and flexibility and specificity. And now you can, the way that you can treat a color of a film. Now film's not going in a bath, and like everything changes. Mm-hmm. You can be so specific on what you want to do with your image. It was fun in the sense of, as we started this journey really from Technicolor New York, and then we went to Camera Image in Poland, and kind of assaulted, bum rushed that festival. Really lovely people there. And so we started with the cinematographers, and as the word kind of got on the street, it was like, oh yeah, we've heard of you. Oh yeah, we heard. Oh, you talked to that, and it started to really help us in the sense that we were getting a reputation of being thorough, good, and just trying to talk to everyone. No, this is fantastic. I mean, the big screen is in the sound and the place, and the communal experience is, it's where I come from. But, I still enjoy it. I try to separate from nostalgia and just say, well, what is it really like? And it's fantastic, Chris Nolan, he speaks about it, not, it didn't make the documentary, but he speaks about the human face. And just somehow the size and the intimacy and what that can be, and the way that cinema, the way film treats the human face, and how that, the dream quality and the impact of that. But we're not, I don't think that's going to go away. It's, if anything, there's more and more ways to see art, storytelling. So and digital projectors and DCP and, Red, Jim Gennard, they're coming up with other, if anything, the way to see images large is going to get cheaper and better quality, actually. It just won't be might be in your garden. The concepts that are introduced here are like a beginning as opposed to an end to me, you know, in the sense of how are we going to tell our stories? How are we going to watch our stories? Who's going to make them, and how are they going to make them? I think it's a really lovely beginning and an eternity. Is film dead? That's the one thing that I don't know. That, you know, that's going to be like, well, what happened?